Tonight, NPP MPs to decide fate of finance minister following approval of IMF deal. But ahead of that crucial meeting, we hear from the majority leader who says there is little appetite now among majority MPs to remove Ken Ofori-Atta.
Sometimes when issues emerge and a lot of water passes under the bridge, perhaps it may be good to allow sleeping dogs to lie. But it's not a decision that I can take on my own. Maybe we have to have a meeting.
Plus, does Chairman Sabunso back Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia for the NPP flag bearership slot?
Dr. Bawumia, what did you say? Many say has the potential. Well, I'm a leader. I'll go with what most of the people say. If most of the people in my party are saying Dr. Bawumia, I'm a leader. I have to align with them.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It's been a few weeks now since the IMF approved Ghana's deal, $3 billion bailout. Well, now we're learning the NPP MPs in Parliament are set to meet to decide the fate of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta following that approval. As you may recall, the NPP MPs had met with President Akufo-Addo and they had been assured that post the approval, the president will act on their request to remove Ken Ofori-Atta. Tonight, we've been speaking to the majority leader who led the majority side in that meeting with the president, and he's been speaking about this. He says there is little appetite now, even among the majority MPs, to still remove Ken Ofori-Atta, but also suggests that a lot of water may have passed under the bridge, and maybe it's time to consider allowing sleeping dogs to lie. Listen to Osei Chairman Sabunso speaking exclusively to me about the fate of Ken Ofori-Atta in the wake of the IMF deal.
Yes, we had that engagement with the president, and I agree with you what the outcome was. But and then it was predicated on our concluding the negotiations with the IMF. But you see, technically, we're not even out of the woods yet, because I just told you that the World Bank is here now. I think the IMF will be coming, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, to also look at a few things. And then they will come for a review, I guess, in August or so. So you see, technically, the negotiations have not, finalized.
But this is the implementation phase we are in now. The program itself, the deal has been concluded, monies have been disbursed. We're in the implementation phase, which will take 3 years. It's done. Door closed on this, isn't it? As far as the trigger for the consideration of removal or not is concerned, that has been achieved.
No, it's not closed. To the extent that the people are watching your steps. We just said that the first tranche of the 3 billion has been released. There's no automaticity that the next tranche would come.
That is dependent on you meeting...
your compliance.
Yes.
So I'm saying to you that the door is not firmly closed yet. You would expect them to be coming around, which means that there are outstanding issues that you have to be relating to. But as I said last week, sometimes when issues emerge and a lot of water passes under the bridge, perhaps it may be good to allow sleeping dogs to lie. But it's not a decision that I can take on my own. Maybe we have to have a meeting because, as I said, even though this whole thing emanated from a group within the majority, the entire caucus subsequently aligned. And so it became the position of the majority caucus. So we have to have a meeting naturally with the caucus, explain things to them. Maybe we may even have to involve the finance minister himself, and then we take it from there.
What about the president himself who made that promise?
Well, first of all, the finance minister was the sore point, so to speak, and he was at the receiving end. A few things have emerged, and our things are shaping up. Is it the case that we still should go on holding his feet to fire? Or is it the case that, as I said, sleeping dogs should be allowed to lie? It is a decision that will come from the caucus. Thereafter, we may then have to meet with the president.
So far, has any of the members on your side who were campaigning for this, have they reached out to ask you, nudge you and say, listen, we're told the deal is over now, should we act? Has anybody reached out yet?
Well, I would say one person sent me a post, asking me where we are. I will bring it up again. And my response was just the response that I've given you. And after he's not come back to me. And now is the entire caucus's position. So that's where we are. But I'm saying that we shall possibly meet, to finally put the matter to bed. That is, to go forward or not to go forward. The decision rests with the caucus.
What's your sense? You still feel there's that it was very intense
at the time?
At the time,
yes.
Reading the mood since you've been back, do you still feel there's an appetite?
If there's appetite, you will hear it. Perhaps intensity has profoundly subsided. I'm not saying that there are no relics, but intensity has subsided significantly. But we take it from there. And as I'm saying, it's not one man's decision. It's the caucus's decision. So we shall further interrogate, and then we take a common position on that.
And I want to take it to Parliament right now because today the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, was expected to answer some 10 questions which have suffered repeated postponement. My parliamentary correspondent joins us on the telephone line right now. Kweku, just before we get into the questions that the Finance Minister was expected to answer, this issue with Ken must go, which was started by the majority MPs themselves. Chairman Sabunsu talks about they have to meet to decide. He talks about water under the bridge, and so possibly let sleeping dogs lie. What's the mood among the majority MPs? And he says the appetite is not as intense as it was at the beginning of even this year. What's the mood among the majority MPs? What are you reading?
Well, Evans, like Chairman Sabunsu said, he has spoken with some of the majority MPs who seem to have dropped that demand. But a number of the NPP MPs I've also spoken to have also said that they are very much waiting for the president to act. Indeed, within this week, I spoke to a number of them after we had spoken to Chairman Sabunsu, who had made that revelation about water passing down the bridge, for which reason he thought sleeping dogs must be made to lie. Some of these NPP MPs said, no, that is not their understanding, and that they are very much looking forward to the caucus meeting to take up a decision. Evans, mind you, 99 of those NPP MPs held a news conference and in that unprecedented fashion demanded that Ken Ofori-Atta must go. Following that, Ken Ofori-Atta became the subject of the entire majority caucus when the entire caucus decided that that was a position that they held, but the president must dismiss him. And some of these NPP MPs have been telling me now that they are very much looking forward to a meeting where the explanation will be given why Ken Ofori-Atta must still be made to continue, because they believe that the MPP's chance in the 2024 election will hinge a lot on the economy and how it is faring. And although things may seem to be bouncing back, they cannot give Ken Ofori-Atta that time from now to 2024 to remain in office. And this for this reason that some of the NPP MPs I've spoken to, numbering about 12, since last week that the majority leader made that proposition, have said that they haven't dropped their demands at all, and that if by a certain time they do not hear from the majority that there's no meeting, then they'll be forced to come out and either issue a press statement or do another press conference. So we are looking forward to that if government does not negotiate or engage with the majority MPs to firm up any decision on this, Evan.
And Kweku, Ken Ofori-Atta was expected before Parliament today. There are 10 questions he needed to field. Did he show up?
He did not. This is about the fifth or even sixth time that these questions that have been scheduled to be answered by the finance minister would have to be postponed again. during the very previous meetings that these questions were expected to be answered, the minister did not show up. Letters were sent that the minister was busy with negotiations with the IMF, among others. But this time around, no response or no letter has been submitted to the Speaker. The Speaker did not read any section on the floor. And so these 10 questions will now have to be rescheduled again by Parliament for the Finance Minister to come and answer. Indeed, because the House was expecting the Minister to come in and he did not, they had to alter the business a little in the morning. They had to go in for a closed sitting to consider the Get Fund allocation formula, which report is now being taken on the floor. After that, they expected that the Minister will come. He did not, and so they proceeded to do other business having to do with some bills that the Attorney General has brought. They've dealt with all that. They've gone back to the Get Fund allocation formula. The Finance Minister has still not showed, and there's been no communication, at least publicly, as to why Ken Ofori-Atta has not showed up to answer these 10 questions, which have suffered so many repetitions and adjournments.
And Kweku, there's also a fresh push to get Ken Ofori-Atta to come to the House and brief the entire House about the IMF deal. And recall, the deal was concluded and approved by the IMF Executive Board when the House was on recess. Is this gathering momentum in the House?
It is, Evans. On the last two occasions since Parliament came, that Osei Mensa Bonsu and the majority leadership have had to present the business statement. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa in particular has had calls to invite the Finance Minister to come and brief the House. Indeed, it is the contention of some of the majority MPs that this may even be an international agreement that ordinarily must come before Parliament for approval. But it appears that has not been stretched so much. But Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa in particular has been asking for that, for the Finance Minister to come to brief MPs on the intricacies and the details of the finance agreement that has been reached with the IMF. And Osei Mensa Bonsu has been providing some general update on that.
I think, as you rightly notice or observe, the conclusion of the Executive Committee negotiations really happened when we were on recess, which is why last week a colleague of ours, in fact, indicated that it would be appropriate, perhaps, for the Minister to come to Parliament to brief us about where we are.
So you agree with that, the Minister coming to brief you?
Well, generally, I think that if Parliament, we have a function of financial control and also oversight. And if we have concluded, we need to know. The nation needs to know. So we speak to the nation through Parliament. But the issue is, he is coming with a media review in July. Would it not be better if we stood it down so that when he comes with a media review, he could brief us and also then submit the media review? Other people are also saying that we should
separate
decouple the two. So we have to have some engagement with the Minister. I had indicated to the House that I was going to have a discussion with the Minister on that before Thursday, so that if it was going to be possible, perhaps we could have him tomorrow or Thursday. Unfortunately, I've not been able to have the discussion with him because over the weekend I was not in good shape. I only came out yesterday quite strong. So I want to see if it's possible to have that engagement with him between this evening and tomorrow, so that when we meet on Friday, I'll be able to tell them something significant.
Well, what's your preference?
If we agree, if he does agree that he's able to make time, as we speak now, he's meeting with the World Bank. We don't want to do anything that will derail whatever they've come to do.
I want to bring in Member of Parliament for Booster South, Dr. Clement Park. He's one of the MPs who asked the question and was expecting the Finance Minister to appear before the House today to answer that question. He joins us on the telephone line right now. Dr. Park, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Yeah, good evening, Evans. Good evening to listeners as well.
What's your question today?
Well, my question to Ken Ofori-Atta had to do with seeking clarification with regards to the cost of free senior high school in the last 5 years, which will be 2017 to 2021. And I asked that question because I had previously asked a question whereupon he came to answer and indicated that 7.62 billion had been used to implement the program. Later on, he reported to Parliament through the media budget review of 2022 that 5.3 billion had been used to finance the program in 5 years. So my question essentially is to ask him what accounts for the disparity in terms of the figures he reported earlier on and the figures he indicated in the 2022 media budget review.
Yeah, he was unable to do so today, provide that answer today. And yesterday we got some clarity from Chairman Sabongsu that he's been pretty busy. He's been having meetings with the World Bank. Have you been told today why he was unable to come to Parliament and answer the questions?
No, we have not been told why. And quite honestly, Evans, this is not the first time I am going to say this, and I'll say it again. Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister, has shown gross disrespect for Parliament, and in particular, when it comes to questions filed by members of Parliament. I can tell you on authority that of all the ministers appointed by the Akufo-Addo government from 2017 till date, if we were to look at the records about their appearance in Parliament to respond to questions by members of Parliament, I can tell you that Ken Ofori-Atta's record is very abysmal. It is not just his refusal or his lack of interest or his lack of attention to questions filed by members of Parliament, but this man has never even appeared before the Public Accounts Committee ever since I became a member in 2017.
But isn't that understandable, Dr. Park? I mean, we are in economic crisis. The man is trying to save this entire economy from utter total collapse. Isn't that why he'll be unable to honor these invitations? He's been there a few times, as you know.
Evans.
Yes.
The problem is that even before this economic crisis, even at a time when he wasn't purportedly busy, he was not showing up. So the point I'm making is that he has the unenviable record of simply not giving parliamentary questions the needed attention and response as is expected of every minister. So we cannot make excuses for him. It was happening before this time, and clearly it is continuing.
What do you plan to do about this? Today he was unable to come. I mean, at least yesterday, we played that interview with Chairman Sabongsu, who was talking about the challenge with all the meetings he's having currently. You know, the IMF may be in town, the World Bank as well. That's why. You haven't had any explanation today. What do you plan to do about it?
That is what is offensive. Because, I mean, the majority side has always made excuses for him. The same Chairman Sabongsu, even in the days when he wasn't showing up, where we had cause to complain, and if you would check your own records, our former minority chief, Muntaka, and the rest of us severally complained because he wasn't showing up to respond to questions, and we were not getting any written explanations. The leadership of the majority tended to make excuses for him. And now I am not surprised that Chairman Sabongsu is again trying to make an excuse for why Ken Ofori-Atta didn't show up. But at the very minimum, they should have put in a written explanation. A letter should have come to the Speaker, who then should have read it to us, justifying and giving us the real reasons why Ken Ofori-Atta was not able to appear before the August House of Parliament to respond to questions. So as far as we are concerned, it is not because he is cooped in some corner dealing with economic matters, because we have not been told so. So the only conclusion we can draw is that he's still up to his own despicable habit of not showing up to answer our questions.
When do you now hope he will come and answer the questions. And what's the minority's move next now? On the
well, we can only advocate and call on the leadership of Parliament to make sure that he comes. You know, if we had our way, he wouldn't even be the finance minister for this and many other reasons. It is the majority that protected him when they had the unique opportunity to join us so that we could get rid of him. But they chose to protect him. And since they are in the majority, by parliamentary processes and procedure, they are the ones that will decide what happens and what doesn't happen. We can protest and raise all the issues, but we are challenged in our ability to hold the street to the fire.
Dr. Clement Park, thank you very much. And talking about the earlier pronouncements by Chairman Sabonsu, the majority leader, regarding the decision whether or not to get Ken Ofori-Atta removed from the majority caucus. Remember, they had started this Ken Must Go campaign, held press conferences, and eventually met the president to discuss this. And the president had assured them that he will act on their request after the conclusion of the IMF negotiations. Now, Chairman Sabonsu yesterday explained that, yes, that was the pronouncement, that was the commitment, but technically the IMF program and the negotiations are not complete. And so you cannot argue that the trigger is now in motion to remove him. Listen to his explanation.
Yes, we had that engagement with the president, and I agree with you what the outcome was. But and then it was predicated on our concluding the negotiations with the IMF. But you see, technically, we're not even out of the woods yet, because I just told you that the World Bank is here now. I think the IMF will be coming, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, to also look at a few things. And then...
So technically, the negotiations and our relationship with the IMF is not complete, and so possibly it is a reason why they possibly will not revisit the conversation about removing Ken Ofori-Atta. But is that really how you judge it? At what point do you say that your program has been approved, and at what point do you say that it is still in motion? Let's bring in Professor of Economics, Professor Godfrey Bockwing, who had listened into this and joins us now. Prof, thanks very much for your time here on Top Story. You listened to Chairman Sabonsu and how he rationalized the timing when it comes to negotiations with the IMF, and knowing what the trigger should have been, at least from the meeting with the president, that it should have been post the IMF program. What's your own interpretation of what he had said there and the explanations he's given about the technicality of whether or not we are still in conversation with the IMF? We'll get his attention quickly on this. And as you know, Parliament today has been waiting to hear from the Finance Minister. And we've heard from Chairman Sabonsu also. A conversation is already underway to get a Finance Minister to brief the House on the IMF program itself, because that deal was completed whilst the House was on recess. And so the conversation has started. Last week, there was a push to get the Finance Minister into the House to do the briefing. There's also a conversation around whether to wait till the mid-year budget review. Then he would include in that review a briefing to the House on that IMF program. And that's something that is still being discussed, as the majority leader had indicated. And because of the finance minister's own busy schedule, as still negotiations and talks are still ongoing currently, he says, with the World Bank in particular, they haven't managed to finalize and agreed a time for the finance minister to come in. This is Top Story.